In past days, Sayadaw has been speaking about how, according to the Abhidhamma, how knowledge is present, how knowledge can be present every time a wholesome mind arises. Sayadaw explained this. And today Sayadaw will explain how, according to the suttas, one of the 7 factors of enlightenment, which is called Dhamma Vicaya Sambojana, the enlightenment factor of investigation of nama and rupa, a type of wisdom. Sayadaw will explain what its 7 causes are. Sayadaw mentioned the word bojjhanga. This is made up of 2 words, bodhi and anga. Bodhi means past knowledge, which is able to know the cessation of nama and rupa, mental and physical phenomena. Meditators are meditating to gain past knowledge. Before that past knowledge arises, one has to observe mental and physical phenomena. One has to observe their individual characteristics. These are the specific qualities that any type of rupa or any type of nama has. And if one observes at the very moment when an object arises, one will come to see these individual characteristics or sabhava of rupa and nama. And seeing these, one comes to see what they have in common, what all nama and rupa, all mentality and physicality have in common. They arise and then pass away. All of them, all rupa and nama, are the same in this respect. Things which arise and pass away aren't good. They're suffering, unsatisfactory. This characteristic is called dukkha lakkhana. No one makes them, the mentality and physicality, arise and pass away. They arise due to causes and then they pass away. In the world, there are changes in the weather. One moment it's cold, and then it becomes warm, it rains, it becomes dry, and so on. No one makes the weather change like this. It just is behaving according to its own true nature. There's no individual self, jiva atta, involved. And there's also no parama atta, no supreme being involved. Mental and physical phenomena, nama and rupa, are just arising. They're occurring as cause and effect. And in this, there's no self to be found, no atta. This characteristic of anatta, lack of an inherent self, permeates, is found everywhere in all mental and physical phenomena. And one observes this, one observes nama and rupa and investigates this, inquires into it. One sees that this is rupa, that is nama. There's cause and effect. They have a cause and effect relationship. And they themselves are impermanent, suffering, and selfless. This investigative factor, Dhamma Vicaya, is one factor of path knowledge. And knowing, such as knowing nama and rupa, it's a form of knowing. It's a form of wisdom. Wisdom is knowing things such as nama and rupa. And there are 7 causes for this quality of Dhamma Vicaya to arise. And these are very suitable, very relevant to the yogis who are practicing. The first of these 7 factors is called paripochakata. That means repeatedly asking. Pari means repeatedly, and pocha means question or asking. So repeatedly asking. When we meditate, we learn about the profound Dhamma from a theoretical point at first. At least we learn this is rupa, which is physical, this is nama. These are related by cause and effect. There are elements, and they have a certain type of true nature. This is what is considered to be part of profound Dhamma. This Dhamma is difficult to see, and therefore it's deep and profound. So one learns at least about what rupa is. Rupa is that which doesn't know. And it's hard and soft, or coarse, fine, flowing, cohesive, sticky. It can be heavy, it can be warm, cold, light, hot. These are all qualities that physicality has. So we need to know these basic qualities of rupa. And nama. Nama is that which knows. Or consciousness, the knowing faculty. Knowing the visible object, knowing sound, knowing smells. We call these seeing consciousness, hearing consciousness, smelling consciousness, tasting consciousness, touching consciousness, and thinking consciousness. So there's 6 kinds of knowing faculty, or of nama, or of consciousness. So we know, at least by name, this is rupa, and that is nama. This is physical, and that is mental. And if it's not clear, then we need to ask. So the meditation teachers, in the Dhamma talk and in teaching, they often speak in anticipation of the yogi's questions, and then the yogis find their questions are answered in the Dhamma talk. So this first factor for Dhamma Vicaya to arise, this quality which is a form of paññā, is asking repeatedly. And when we say ask, this doesn't mean to debate, for it's not in order to debate, it's just in order to become clear about that which is not yet clear. It's also not asking as a way of trying to disturb others. One shouldn't ask questions in that way. The second cause for Dhamma Vicaya to arise is Vatu Visara Kiriya. Vatu means things. And they may be internal things, like one's body, or external things outside of us, or things we use, or our environment. And Visara means clean, cleanliness, and Kiriya means to make. So this factor is making things both inside and outside of us clean. So basically making our body and our environment clean. For monks need to shave their head. They need to shave their hair if their hair has become too long. That's one form of making the body clean. And when one hasn't digested something properly, and one needs to do so, sometimes one needs to take medicine to get rid of, make one vomit the thing that is causing oneself trouble internally. Or if one is constipated, one needs to take something so that the bowels will then move. These are also ways that we need to be clean sometimes. And also dirt on the body, under the nails and so on. All this has to be cleaned. And cleanliness outside refers to one's clothes. If they have a bad smell, for monks, then if they have a bad smell, or if they're dirty, then we must wash them. And if there's trash, litter lying around, litter disturbs the mind. And when we see a place that is free of litter, then the mind becomes clear, seeing it. So making ourselves clean inside and outside is the second cause for jnana, or knowledge, to arise. There needs to be cleanliness both in and out. So, and if one has this type of cleanliness, both of body and environment, then one can develop the reflective ability of whether something is beneficial or not for oneself, whether something is suitable or not. And in practice, such a one will be able to develop samatha and vipassana practice both. So this cleanliness of things, both inside and outside of us, is the second cause for Dhamma Vicaya to arise. The third cause for Dhamma Vicaya, jnana, to arise is Indriya Samatha Patipadana. So Indriya in International Pali. Indriya means ruling faculty. And Samatha means balance. And Patipadana means to bring it about. So bringing about balance of the ruling faculties is this third cause for Dhamma Vicaya to arise. The ruling faculties that we are speaking of, the indriyas, are mental in this case. And the first is faith. So we have faith. At first our faith is just ordinary faith when we start the practice. But when we develop knowledge through practice, our faith becomes decisive. The mind becomes clear, and then one starts to develop knowledge, beginning with the discernment of nama and rupa. From there, one sees how they are related as cause and effect, and how they are impermanent, suffering, and selfless. When one develops knowledge through the practice, one's faith becomes decisive. One has decisive faith in the satipatthana practice. One realizes it really makes the mind clean. And one sees that what one studied or learned about, one sees it directly in one's practice. So one becomes decisive about the practice. This is the ruling faculty of faith, saddendriya. So indriya means ruler. So every village, town, state, country, and so on, they all have a leader or a ruler, some type of governmental head. And a person who's going to manage or rule a village or a town or any other body, they need to study to gain the knowledge that is needed for leading. They need to gain experience. And through this one becomes experienced as a ruler. One becomes a good ruler. And it's the same with the mind. So this quality of faith, first, it wakes up. It's awakened. So we have to wake it up, and then we have to make it firm with the knowledge that is gained through the practice. Seeing cause and seeing nama and rupa, seeing cause and effect. And especially when one sees how nama and rupa, which arise due to causes, arise and pass away. When one sees that, sees their impermanence, suffering and selfless characteristic, especially how they arise and pass away, one's faith becomes very strong. So this is the ruling faculty of faith, sadendriya. We have to develop this faith, the ruling faculty of faith. We apply ardent effort to observe the arising object. Whenever something arises, at first, nothing much happens. But as we keep on going, we keep on practicing, we get to be so that when the object arises, the effort is there to note the object automatically. This is the ruling faculty of virendriya. The ruling faculty, virya, often sometimes called courageous effort. The ruling faculty of virya is the courage to avoid doing what is unwholesome and the courage to do what is wholesome. So by applying oneself, one's virya becomes good. So when one has this courage to avoid unwholesome and to do wholesome, then the ruling faculty of virya is good. And when it is good, then it can rule the other faculties. So the faculties, the ruling faculties, Sayadawji just mentioned faith, the ruling faculty of faith, and the ruling faculty of virya, or courageous effort. There's also the ruling faculty of samadhi and also of panya. And these all must be balanced. When one meditates with full faith, then through a series of events, beginning with faith, one applies the practice, zeal, and so on. The knowing mind starts to develop. The mind becomes clean. Beginning with faith, one develops the clean mind, and one sees how nama and rupa are related as cause and effect. And one also sees how they arise and pass away. Especially at this point, whenever knowledge occurs, but especially at the point of seeing how phenomena arise and pass away, one's faith becomes increased. One feels this is true, and only now am I knowing this. And one feels very elated when one starts to learn in the practice. If at that point one doesn't continue to note, the faculty of wisdom becomes dull. So this is a case of faith being excessive. And sometimes people who are used to thinking, whatever they experience, they analyze it, either through their own knowledge or with scientific methods. So this is an example of the wisdom faculty being excessive. In this case, one's belief that when one notes, kilesas will be eliminated. When one goes too far with wisdom and analyzes things through scientific method, then one's belief goes down. and one also can't practice effectively in that moment. Some yogis, so these two faculties of faith and wisdom need to be balanced. And some yogis want the Dhamma very much. They have a lot of chanda or zeal to gain the Dhamma. And because of this excessive chanda, they have excessive virya, excessive effort in the practice. And when energy is too strong, then it makes the mind scattered. On the other hand, some yogis just note in an ordinary way without applying effort. And because of this, what they see is the same all the time. And so they become bored and sleepy. This is a case of excessive samadhi. So these two faculties also, when virya is excessive, then the mind becomes scattered. And when samadhi is excessive, the mind becomes sleepy. So these two also must be balanced. So say you're trying to lift up something heavy, and it needs 4 people. You need to have 4 people to lift this up. So if one person doesn't hold up their end of the object, then it won't be easy to lift this thing up. Say it's a big piece of furniture that needs 4 people to lift it. And if on the other hand, another person uses too much force so that they're using more energy than all the other people, then it also won't be easy to lift this piece of furniture up. But when all 4 people are balanced, then it's easy to lift up the big piece of furniture. And it's the same with our controlling faculties. The faith and wisdom, sada and panya, need to be balanced. If faith is excessive, then we won't be able to develop knowledge. And also, if panya is excessive, then kusala won't occur. Virya, when it's too strong, makes the mind scattered, and samadhi, when it's too strong, makes the mind dull. So these two also need to be balanced. When faith and wisdom are balanced, and when effort and samadhi are balanced, then knowledge will occur, and it will develop, increasing in stages. So this is the third cause for knowledge to arise, indriya samattha padipadana. So the fourth cause for knowledge to arise is dopanya pogala pariwasana. That means avoiding people who do not have panya or wisdom. So going from kindergarten to grade school and then high school and going to university and getting a degree. This is not what we mean by panya. We don't mean that one should avoid uneducated people. What is meant here is, what is meant by panya, not having panya, is not knowing about nama and rupa, not knowing about the 4 elements, not knowing about the khandhas, not knowing about the practice of satipatthana. So in the world, we must associate with people who don't have knowledge like this, but we must not take such a person as our teacher. The 5th cause for knowledge to arise is panya pogala sevana. That means to rely on those who are wise, rely on those who have panya. One should approach a person with panya or wisdom and rely on them, depend on them. And here too, by panya or wisdom, we don't mean the worldly sense that is equated with getting a degree or being skilled in academics. It means that one knows this is rupa, this is nama, in terms of one knows how they're described. If we think about phenomena as two kinds, there's rupa and nama, but this nama and rupa can be broken down further into 5 kinds, 5 groups. We're talking about the same thing though. And these are related by cause and effect, and they have their own true nature. And a person with paññā has applied the practice and has reached at least the stage of uddiyabbiya ஞāna, being able to see the fast arising and passing away of phenomena. Such a person understands through their practice that the method is correct. They know how to practice, and due to their own practice, they understand the benefits, at least to the stage where of the knowledge that they've realized. So this person is considered one with paññā, who has practiced at least to the stage of realizing the first fast arising and passing away of phenomena. Such a person's paññā is not complete, but it has a good foundation at this point. In this regard, Sayadaw wants to say that no matter how much theoretical learning a teacher may have, if he or she has not yet reached this stage of uddiyabbiya ஞāna, of seeing the fast arising and passing away of phenomena, you should not approach that person as a teacher. Some people practice under the guidance of many different teachers, taking notes about what they say, but never developing the practice to this extent, to the extent of realizing the stage of uddiyabbiya ஞāna. So one needs to be careful. One needs to be able to evaluate whether a teacher is someone who has wisdom or not. Someone who has not yet reached this stage is not considered one who has wisdom, so should not be approached as a teacher. If one chooses a wrong teacher, one suffers throughout one's life as a result. The 6th cause for Dhamma Vicaya to arise is Gambhira Jnana Charya Pachawakana. That means to reflect on the profound Dhamma with one's knowledge. So Gambhira means profound. It's difficult to see, so it's profound. And that is rupa and nama and its causes. Or in other words, the truth of suffering and the truth of its cause, dukkha sacca and samudaya sacca. These truths are profound because they are difficult to see. And then there are the truths that are, the first 2 are profound because they are difficult to see. The first 2 are difficult. So the dukkha and the truth of suffering and the truth of its cause are profound because they are hard to see. And the truth of nibbana, cessation, and the path leading to it are difficult to see, and therefore they are profound. So if one wants to, if one reflects on the Dhamma, by this reflection one's mind can become clean, and one can develop knowledge based on the clean mind. Yogis now, if one wants to see the true Dhamma, one applies effort at the moment the object arises. And this Dhamma is deep, that one is observing, but it becomes apparent with one's knowledge. One sees nama and rupa. One sees cause and effect. So this reflecting on the deep, profound Dhamma is the sixth cause for developing Dhamma Vicaya or Jnana. And yogis now are doing this with every arising object. They apply effort and they make the mind clean. When the mind is clean, one sees the Dhamma that is difficult to see and therefore profound. One sees nama and rupa, or the truth of suffering. And with seeing that, automatically one lets go of its cause, samudaya. The seventh cause is tadati motata. That means to have firm determination for developing the faculty of Dhamma Vicaya. The firm determination to develop knowledge completely. One knows that this is the work. So one has the objective to create knowledge. So one's mind is inclined towards developing knowledge. And one's mind is firm in this inclination, or firmly determined. We give priority to developing knowledge. If we have that type of priority in our mind, then Dhamma Vicaya, the knowledge that is called Dhamma Vicaya, will arise and develop in stages. So this is something to reflect on. One needs to reflect. The practice is for knowing nama and rupa. So one should ask, have I applied my mind to knowing nama and rupa, or am I just thinking about it? Only with seeing sabhava directly through the application of the practice does knowledge arise. So one has to be sure not to lose this time, which is very valuable. Sayadaw makes the wish that you may be able, all of you, be able to develop knowledge. Give developing knowledge a priority, and may you all be able to develop it in stages until at least the realization of first path and fruition. That's all for today. Sadhu. Path and fruition. That's all for today. Sadhu. Path and fruition. That's all for today.